Hey folks, Taylor Elwood here. Today I want to talk about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, and it's a topic that is really all about um, manifestation of results, and why certain results manifest and why others don't. When I think about results in magic, I really think about it in terms of a balance between power and form, between possibility and realization. And what does that really mean? It means that when you're doing magical work, you're necessarily making an exchange of sorts between power and form. And by power, I mean that let's say you're drawing on some type of chi or spiritual power or what have you. That's the power that you're drawing on. In order to manifest that into reality, you necessarily have to give some of it up toward what I would consider to be form or manifestation, the embodiment of the reality. And the reason for that is because the manifestation of form necessarily takes up a certain amount of energy that would otherwise be stuck in possibility. You're turning that possibility into a reality. You're making an exchange of sorts. I suppose, they talk about this in Full Metal Alchemist as, the equivalent exchange, and that's a good way to look at it. I personally like In the Sphere of Art 2 by R.J. Stewart. He provides a good explanation. I'm going to read it to you for a moment here. Let me just find what he says here. He says that when he talks about limitations, he talks about really this thing called what he calls the scaling down process. And the scaling down process really is a process where you're basically scaling down and reducing the power. So here's what he says. In practice and with experience, the popular ideas of invocation and evocation, as employed today in practical magic, even by experienced and well-trained ritualists, must be called into question. Why? Because it seems more likely that the guardians of the directions have one main function: to scale down and reduce the power. If our invocations/evocations of the North, for example, were to have a telluric response, we might truly raise up mountains. If you've been in an earthquake or near an active volcano, you will know why such power is scaled down rather than up by the spiritual guardians of the directions during magical workings. He goes on to say, such limitations associated with Earth require that to take form, we must limit force. And so what does that really mean? It means that the force that you apply to something necessarily is grounded and limited by the form that is taken. If we look at results and the way that results work, why a given result works over another given result is in part informed by the actual process of magic that you're working with, and what that process of magic, what steps you have, and everything else that you do to put that magic working together. But what it's also informed by is the way that the form of the result is shaped and embodied. This is one of the reasons why in my own magical work I tend to apply the magical work around the mundane actions as much as I do around anything else. Because the mundane actions provide form and embodiment for what I'm doing, they also provide the path of least resistance toward the manifesting of results. What I find a lot of times with magical work and the way that people approach magical work is that they want to manifest a like what we'll call a Hollywood special effect of magic. Like they want to manifest a visible ball of chi, something that could be seen by the naked eye. Think about how much power would have to go into that in order to make it happen. How much power would you have to have? Would you have to be able to generate? And ask yourself this: would your body be able to handle that kind of power? Well, let's consider this. If you stick your finger in a light socket, you're going to get electrocuted. You might even die. So the answer there is that if we can't even handle a direct shock to the system from electricity, we're probably not going to be able to handle the power output required in order to generate a visible ball of energy. I think a lot of times people get caught up in this idea of manifesting something that is visible, um, in an obvious way, because they want the Hollywood magic. They want to be like Stephen Strange, or Doctor Strange from Marvel, and have the 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 bolts of energy flying out of his hands and all that other stuff. But in reality, when we look at how magic works, magic is really a matter of connecting with probability and possibility and finding a path for it that allows us to turn it into a material result of some type. Or magic is a way to connect with the divine and to do spiritual work for the purposes of aligning yourself and your energy with specific spiritual outcomes. And even there, you're going to still have a role with your body that that serves to ground that energy and serves to connect you with the divine, but also protects you from direct exposure to it. This is why, for example, when people work with spirits, what they're really doing is they're working with the spirit as a lens of sort. The spirit becomes a filter that protects us from the direct, raw force of an element. For example, let's say you were working with the element of fire. Working with the element of fire, you're more than likely going to work with, you might work with the Archangel Michael, or you might work with an elemental spirit of fire or something along those lines. You're going to work with something that is representative of that energy. If you were to work with it directly, well, you get burned. Don't believe me? I'm not going to tell you what you could do, but you get the idea. I mean, there's a reason why people get burned if they try and touch fire, because it's a different type of energy, and this is why spiritually there's that mediation that comes into play with any type of elemental force, and really just any type of magical working that we're doing. And when we apply this toward achieving specific results, in my experience, this is why it's a good idea to marry physical actions, mundane actions, to the magical work that you're doing, because you're providing a path of least resistance, but you're also creating the necessary exchange between force and form by providing a venue for which it can be expressed. Mind you, these are my own ideas, and I mean, you can go out there and try different things, but I found over the years in my own magical work that a lot of what has allowed me to achieve, consistent results has not been so much, visible, spectacular feats of magic, but the alignment of probability with reality, finding a way to bring down the force that I'm working with and scaling it to a form that it can manifest through in order to achieve the specific result I'm shooting for. And I think a lot of times people don't talk about magic in that way because we get fixated on this idea, this romantic idea of magic being, a vehicle of empowerment that's going to allow us to do amazing and fantastical things. And don't get me wrong, I mean, magic can be an amazing and fantastical way to experience reality. But I think for us to experience that, we have to be willing to let go of the preconceptions about what magic does or how it can work, and actually open ourselves to the experiences of it, and try things out, but at the same time be open to recognizing that the way it shows up and manifests is not always going to be, not even really, will not necessarily even be at all a visible thing, so much as something that allows us to connect with the world in a meaningful way and allows us to embody a possibility and turn it into a manifested reality. And that's really been my own approach to magic over the years, and it's been something where it's either been, results-driven magic, or it's been a divine communion type of magic. And this is why you see that kind of work, really, in magic, as opposed to seeing people, summoning spirits and all that other stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, you can do invocations and evocations, but the way that they work, it's never going to be the visible kind of stuff that you see, like with, like Doctor Strange or any of that Hollywood stuff. It's much more subtle. But nonetheless, it shows up in your life in a way where you really start to see it through the kinds of synchronicities that line up in your life. When I look back, when I look at my life and I look at the various opportunities and things that have come my way and just the way things have lined up, what's always stood out to me is just how it's all come together in a way that usually works really well for me. And sometimes it brings me along the way to some painful lessons that have to be learned. Um, you know, uh, that's the other thing too, is that if you practice magic or really any spiritual path, you should never go in with the idea that it's going to make everything all right. You're going to have experiences that are going to teach you the lessons you need to learn. They aren't going to be no lessons you necessarily want to learn, but the need to learn them. If you can accept that with grace, if you can work with that, you can actually find that it opens up all kinds of other experiences. I mean, for me, I would say that the spiritual path that I'm on right now and the work that I'm doing is in part so fulfilling precisely because it's not easy work, because it is challenging me and getting me to grow and go in some different directions and look and examine things differently. And this is a good thing. If you understand that about any spiritual path, not just magic, but any spiritual path, if you understand that, then you will get a lot more out of it, because you'll be open to letting that path teach you, as opposed to open to trying to make that path conform to what you just want it to be. We'd all love to live in a world where we just got whatever we wanted, but if you always get what you want, you don't actually discover what you need. And sometimes that's what we need to have. Anyway, just wanted to share this with you, and if you found this video helpful in any way, shape, or form, and you find my material helpful, then check out the link in the comment below, or the link in the description below for donating, and please donate. Thanks so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.